President Biden. Yesterday, March 16th, 2022, the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, asked you and Congress to provide more support to help protect themselves from an unprovoked Russian invasion. President Zelensky showed that Russia is targeting innocent people, bombing schools, hospitals, apartment buildings, killing the elderly, mothers and their babies, children, and Ukrainians with disabilities, illnesses, and injuries. I will admit I'm only 11 years old. I do not have the experience you and your advisors have. As a 6th grader, though, I see little difference between Putin and other bullies I know. Bullies target kids that are younger and smaller than them because they're easy targets, and more importantly, when other kids see how brutal they are, it scares them. This stops bystanders from intervening and is used to blackmail other kids into joining forces with the bully, so they don't get bullied themselves. To keep their hold on other kids, bullies create random rules that constantly shift to justify their behavior, but the bully never follows the rules. Bullies break the rules over and over again, then blame the kids they bullied for breaking the rules. Furthermore, President Biden, bullies don't stop on their own. Unlike toddlers throwing tantrums, if you ignore bully behavior, it just gets worse and worse while they test to see what they can get away with, all the while making threats and intimidating people while telling the adults they're innocent. Putin bombs pregnant women and children to show how reckless he is, then threatens the world with nuclear war to keep people from intervening. Every other day, Putin declares this thing or that thing we might do is an act of war. He needs no justification to launch nuclear weapons and will do so whenever he likes it, no matter what the rest of the world does in response to try and calm him down. I won't lie to you, President Biden. People who stand up to bullies don't always win. Sometimes the empire strikes back. But as a student of history that includes Nazi concentration camps, Japanese internment camps, Vietnamese re-education camps, the genocide of indigenous people, slavery, and eugenics, we learn time after time, if we fail to stand up for what's right, what's moral, when we look away from cruelty and murder, even in the name of peace, we fail ourselves and each other. This invasion is also personally important to me. When my mother was in labor, I had a stroke. As a result, I live with cerebral palsy. People with disabilities are some of the most vulnerable people in the world. There are adults and children in Ukraine who are unable to join the fight and unable to flee to safety. Evacuation plans and materials are inaccessible for many, while evacuation trains, checkpoints, and refugee camps are inaccessible to a wide variety of people with disabilities, including wheelchair users and deaf Ukrainians. Adults and children with disabilities who are unable to flee are running out of necessary medications like anti-seizure drugs. Wheelchair users and some adults and kids with autism are unable to access bomb shelters and train stations. The International Disability Alliance asked both Ukraine and Russia to comply with Article 11 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which they both ratified, and the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2475 ensuring safety and equal protection for all persons with disabilities and access to immediate humanitarian aid, which both Putin is actively blocking throughout the country of Ukraine. President Biden, March is National Disability Awareness Month. Will we learn the lessons of history, or are we doomed to repeat it? My mom told me the moral atrocities we actively perpetrate and passively witness become fundamental wounds to our people. They lead to intergenerational trauma, systematic injustice, and pervasive inequality. In the city of Mariupol, there's no food, water, electricity, or gas. Without humanitarian assistance, children and babies will freeze to death and starve. One little girl died of dehydration more than a week ago. More than 3 million people had to leave their homes, their schools, and their families behind for refugee camps. I'm not asking you to go to war, President Biden. I'm asking you to insist that humanitarian aid is non-negotiable, to insist that we live our values and protect the most vulnerable citizens in Ukraine with a safety corridor. If Vladimir Putin chooses to attack us in that effort, he will be the one that made that choice, not us. And if in the end that dooms us when we will have lived honorable lives.